Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon, and we are joined by super agent Amy Q, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about the best time to sell report from Realtor.com. NAR, they had a Doge incident. They cut 61 employees, and Bill Pulte also is making some serious cuts with FHFA. And Rocket Mortgage acquired Mr. Cooper in a $9+ billion mega deal. And we're going to talk about how 10% of agents control over 42% of listings. So if you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit on the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team, and one of these two ladies here, we have many happy listeners that are now clients. You can do that with the link in the comments. So we've got this article. I'm curious what you two think about this. So Realtor.com came out with this article that said the best time of sale this year is the week of April 13th to the 19th. It's expected to have the ideal balance of housing market conditions that favor home sellers more than any other week in the year. And the majority of home sellers, according to a survey from Realtor.com, 53% took 1 month or less to get their home ready. So the time is now to start prepping for your property. What do you think about this survey? Do you buy into this? Give me some feedback.
I mean, I think that April has a lot going for it. It makes, April 13th to the 19th. Well, the 19th is my birthday. So I'm just to throw that out there. That's fun. But
well, better way to celebrate Sarah's birthday than to list your house with her. So
yes.
If you want to launch, reach out with the link in the comments.
Absolutely. I think this time of year, rates have been, pretty stable here recently. We've got the nice weather coming. We're back to that, we're in the spring market. So I think it makes sense that it would fall in a week here in April. I wouldn't put too much weight on it actually being the 13th to the 19th. If that's what the stats are showing, great. But I think, any of the surrounding weeks are also solid weeks.
Got nothing to say, Amy?
I was just thinking, just the other day I was signing a listing contract, and that's the first thing that came out of her mouth. I read this article and it said, 13th to the 19th. And I thought, isn't that interesting that came up? It's one of those things where everybody seems to be super ready in February. I'm ready. I think I want to do this. It takes them that long to really be prepared to hit the market. So that's fair to say. But that, what is that? 7 days, 6-day period is just unrealistic for most people to fall into that category. But of course, the strongest market we've seen so far this year. And I can see why that would be up there for April.
I totally disagree with this week.
All right.
Because Easter Sunday is right after that. Kids are on spring break that entire week. I don't know about what happens in, I know your kids go to public school, Amy. Everyone I'm talking to was going away on a vacation or some trip that week. And I'm not. I mean, we're here. We're taking a few days off. But if that's probably the worst week in April to list your home, if I'm talking to a seller right now, I'd say we probably want to avoid this week if we can. Simply because especially, depends on the type of property, right? If it's like a big 4-bedroom single family home or that home where a lot of people move up to, you probably want to list the week after that. Because there's just a lot of people that aren't around then. So I don't think they looked at the calendar when they came up with this.
I have a listing that we're doing coming soon, the Friday before Easter. So would that be the 18th? And then we're going to go live on the market the following Friday. And we did that because of where Easter weekend fell, spring break. We factored that in and opted not to list during the 13th to the 19th week there.
Yeah, I get I guess they used they probably used some statistical model or something. This is a great example where computer models don't have logical decisions. It's like a Zillow estimate, right? How accurate are those things? So I know how many. Do a lot of people take off in where your kids go to school for the week of spring break?
Everybody's going away.
Yeah.
Everybody. But what about those people that want to list and get out of town for the week that you could leave the house open for showings, open houses? I had an elderly lady who was retired anyway. So I guess it didn't matter too much to her. But to your point, everybody's going away. So yes, a lot of people did say, call me next week, call me after,
Mhm.
call me, in 3 weeks, whatever the vacation time was. So that makes sense.
Well, that's like a horrible weekend to have an open house. Imagine sitting in an open house Easter Sunday. I mean, that just sounds miserable, unsuccessful. You're setting yourself up to lose. Like
Right.
there's a lot there that doesn't make sense. So, this is a really good way. And you're talking about someone mentioned to you, like we saw this article, Amy. This is a great example of where you need a local expert to help you, because I would imagine spring break's different in other states.
Well, and
It is.
I think even within our state, it's different. Like, I think spring breaks fall different weeks for different school districts,
Well,
right?
so I know a local private school. I only know this because the kids weren't at my son's baseball game this week, and they're on spring break right now.
Yeah.
And so,
Friend who's out of town right now with her kids on
Yep.
spring break.
And my daughter had a few
Right.
concerts last week because they were all on spring break.
Mhm.
A lot of the private schools in our area.
I think it really demonstrates the point of the national stuff is great. Get a local expert, specifically one of these two ladies. So I would just be careful reading these kind of topics here. I can't imagine. It's not like the open house and the launch weekend. That's probably now if you're on the market the weekend before, I think it's actually a great week to launch. We have a listing going on and starting showings the previous week, like the 11th or whatever that Friday is. I think that's a great week because people are off. Maybe they're not going away the whole time, but that's like not the weekend you want to have like your big like open houses
yeah.
and all that stuff.
It
So
won't be successful.
well, and you got family in town. People have other obligations too, or they might be going somewhere else for Easter. Easter's like one of the worst holidays, by the way. I mean, it's on a Sunday. You don't get a day off afterwards. I'm not a big fan. So
This year we got off Monday. That's a miracle.
really,
We never do.
really
First year they put it in the calendar for Easter Monday off.
Nice.
Yeah.
interesting. Hopefully that's a trend. That didn't happen in our school district.
Yeah.
So
I hope so.
be careful what you read here. This is why you need a local expert. You want to understand what's going on locally with the calendar and those sort of things. Now, what I do want to talk about next year when it comes to the market is I had the chance actually to connect with Logan Motashami from Housing Wire. He comes out with his housing market tracker every single week on a Friday, and he did the Knowledge Brokers podcast with us this past week. We're going to play a clip from him a little later. And he's talking about how mortgage rates are trending downward since January 14th, contrary to the expectations around like tariffs and inflation concerns. And, we're seeing, I think yesterday or today, we saw rates at like 6 3/4. It seems like that's kind of where they're trending right now. And the question I have for you two is, will mortgage rates go any lower with all of this drama? Because to me, these tariff threats, that's just a talking point to get what the president wants from the other countries. I don't think there's not going to be any tariffs here. Like they're on again, they're off again, they're on again, they're off again. They're changing stuff all the time. It's a bargaining chip. So, do you think that's going to affect rates? Are they going to go lower? What do you two think about this after monitoring the market with these threats? Now it's been a couple months of this.
I mean, I think, or what I would hope here is that rather than any, drastic moves be made, that, things just kind of stay the course where they've been. We've kind of been sticking around for the last couple weeks, this level where the interest rates are. That's with the talk of the tariffs coming. It's still stuck right around where we've been. It'll be interesting to see, if and when they hit here, and then how long do they stick? Do they come off? But like, there's more, even if it is just talk, and even if it is just a negotiating tactic, it's a little bit of a risky one because it's on the world stage where other countries are responding and also setting things up on their end. So even if we pull out, like, who knows if they, you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of putting a lot of balls in the air that we don't know exactly how they're going to land right now. So hopefully that's not overly factored into where the rates are, and we just like kind of look at the other pieces.
This is a tough one because I feel he needs something. A lot of people, at least a lot of my pushback has been, wow, have you looked at your 401? Have you looked at, the stock market and other things that I feel as though if he does make a cut, which they are, I believe, predicting at least another one in the next 3 months, whether or not that.
So you're talking about the Federal Reserve making a rate cut?
Yes.
Okay.
And so to me, it's like, could that potentially make people happy? Because right now they're walking on eggshells. What's going to happen? What's he going to do next? I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't see the Fed really pivoting from their promised rate cuts. I mean, they said we're going to see 2 this year. I mean, they usually they don't really get involved in all this. I think there is a lot of talk right now, and I think a lot of it's just like negotiating with other countries. You're right; it's on the world stage, and it does affect a lot of people. I think that's pretty important. The thing I'd be looking at is where inflation came in. It came in a little hotter than expected. And on Friday, when the release of the data came out, it was mildly higher. And we also saw a noticeable decline in the 10-year yield. Stock prices and mortgage rates, they all kind of dipped down a little bit. And I think people are concerned about the economy, as some of the consumption figures have come in a little bit lower than expected, meaning they're like watching their spending. And that's something that I think is what I'd be watching probably more, is what happens with jobs and what happens with inflation, because that typically is where what leads to these lower rates. I think rates are going to kind of be here. I don't see this changing too much. What are some of your clients saying right now? Like, what are you hearing in the field?
One specific example that comes to mind for me is someone who wanted to make sure things were ordered in time before tariffs kicked in, for like a new construction where there were just like a couple of things that needed to be done where the selections were made, and it was like, I want to make sure
as far as locking in time.
Yeah, and like we made our selections, like Mr. Builder, like please make sure they're ordered, because these were upgrades from.
Oh, I got you, for supply.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's interesting.
That's one example that I can think of where like it was specifically speaking of tariffs. I think for a lot of other people, a lot of other clients, even if that hasn't specifically come up, there's like a general sense of like uncertainty, but there's kind of been that. So it's just kind of, it's always something, right?
It's always there. That's what I'm saying. I'm getting a lot of that conversation.
Yeah.
Should I make this move? I had every intention on doing it. And then I wake up every day and there's a different change. There's a different, like you said, on the world stage. Now what's happening? Now who's being up, who's upset with us today? Should I do this? Where's this going?
Right.
But it's funny you say that, because I had a new construction select everything, but it wasn't the pushback on supply. It was, can I lock my rate in? And they were like, no, it's too early.
Yeah.
But what do you mean? I don't know.
How early were they in the process? What was too early?
Too early. September 18th is our settlement.
Okay.
So April, May, June, July, August, so 6 months.
Too. Okay.
Yeah. So they kind of said, no, it's too early. I can't entertain that right now.
Well, that's pretty normal. I mean, that's a normal amount of time where those things aren't locked in. I mean, that's not unusual.
We just actually, for this example I was just talking about, we pushed back our date by which we had to file the mortgage because the time frame was a little bit further back, and wanted to kind of see how rates would play out, and didn't want to have to like commit to something even if we could lock into it time frame wise.
Got it. That goes to show, I think everybody's everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't think everybody feels a steady ground right now.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's always going to be uncertainty, but if you look at, and you look at like the sales data, right? So this comes out and you can kind of like track this stuff through Bright. I mean, and you can also look at like the pending sales indexes and a lot of different things. So, I mean, the spread is dropped, so rates are lower. The mortgage purchase applications index is ahead of where it was last year. It's below where it was in 2023. So that means there's more homes that are, they're getting accepted. And if you look at contracts pending, we're ahead of last year we're behind last year. We're ahead of 2023, but there's also more homes for sale than there ever have been since like before the pandemic. So there's some things to be excited about. And, when you talk about these people being uncertain, they're probably uncertain if they want to even make a move. I don't think has to do with the economy. It's like, is this the right move? Like, do I want to buy something or not? And there's a lot more of that happening, I would imagine, than anything else. I mean, are the folks that are uncertain, do they have like a clear motivation, Amy, or what are you seeing?
The only ones that are transacting have a motivation. It's exactly what you just said. If they're the ones that are saying, my wife has always wanted to move for the last 5 years. She thought this was a 5-year home, or, hey, it's been on our radar the last year and a half. We thought this was it. Now those people are 1 foot off, 1 foot on. But the people that have that motivation, hey, I have no choice. There's a baby on the way. Yep. I got to get out, of this neighborhood. I'm not happy anymore. Whatever that may be. Some unfortunate divorces. They are transacting. They don't have a choice.
Right. And I think that like motivation and those situations are always going to trump whatever is going on.
Absolutely.
And whether or not you're able to take advantage of, and we always say you can't time it. There's no perfect timing for any of this, but
Right.
even if signs are pointing in other directions, like by having this move happen means more than being like as certain as I can be that this was the right time. Like sometimes the move has to happen, and that's more important. And I think that in any market and in any situation is kind of that's the top card for how other things fall in.
Motivation.
So like if you're motivated, you're going to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Agreed.
And that's, when you look at all this data, I mean, we see people buy homes at much higher rates than where they're coming in right now. We've seen people buy homes in much more uncertain times than what we're seeing right now. Think about like the pandemic. Like that was very uncertain. No one knew what the heck was going on. So there's also some things to get excited about if you're a consumer. So we're seeing new listings are up 30.8% compared to a year ago in the entire Bright MLS. That's the week ending March 30th, literally this Monday. Active listings are up 28.9%. What have a lot of people complained about? There's not enough inventory. I'm not seeing enough homes, right? And you got to be careful what you say. It's not no inventory. There's a lack of affordable inventory for a lot of people, and that's really what it is. So we're seeing purchase contracts are up 3.3% year over year. So there's a few more homes selling. So there's a lot of things that rates are lower. And when you look at it in the big picture, this is all great. A lot of folks just go back and they hope that we're getting like 3% rates and like double the inventory. So, to answer the question here, I don't know that mortgage rates are going to go much lower in the short term. Now, the end of the year, a lot of these predictions are 6.35%. That was the average of, I think, 26 or 27 predictors. Sarah, I think, was the number we looked at. It looks like it could be a good prediction where we are right now.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We got a boatload of industry news to talk about between NAR making job cuts, Bill Pulte doing things as the FHFA and making some cuts there, and this rocket mega deal with Mr. Cooper. We'll break it all down next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon. She's Amy Q. We all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we have got all kinds of industry news to unpack here, starting with an NAR restructured where 61 positions were impacted. We've got Bill Pulte revoking the GSE rules and making some serious cuts over at FHFA. And Rocket making more news. Mega deal for them. $9.4 billion acquisition of Mr. Cooper makes the Redfin one look like buying chicken salad at a gas station. So if you get some value out of this, you'll like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team, you can do that with the link in the comments and talk to these two ladies. We've got many happy clients that are working with them that are listeners of the show. So NAR restructures. I'm going to start with this because this all kind of happened over the past week. So on, I guess it was Thursday, NAR announced it's Friday, revamping its internal structure and creating a more cost-effective organization. It's about time. I feel like that's kind of the reaction I have, that impacts 61 different roles. And the cuts are happening where they're eliminating 41 positions and 20 open roles, including creative and content strategy. Their marketing sucks, so that's good. Digital strategy, public relations, meetings and events, member development, human resources, member engagement, member experience, research, finance, IT. And CEO Nakia Wright said the industry is changing and it is our responsibility to lead and change with it as we continue managing our finances to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. We need to invest in the best people, adopt the right processes, and apply the most advanced, cost-effective technology while remaining prudent financial stewards of the enterprise. What do you think about this?
Impressive sentence.
No, yeah, I mean that's all she's good for. So,
let's see.
This is quite interesting, only because when you eliminate 41 existing positions, I don't know. How could it affect? Maybe you're right. Maybe some of that, like you just said, creativity and content, like goodbye, not necessary. How can they better it? Like they're just cutting, cutting, cutting. Is this the fat they trimmed, or is this going to hurt, NAR? It's a good question.
I don't think they can do anything to hurt themselves right now because they're already a disaster. I mean,
Hey, true.
Well, I mean, like if you look at these job positions here, while Sarah's reading through this, so I've heard their commercials on the radio. They're horrible. Digital strategy. I mean, there's no digital branding whatsoever. Their public relations has been a joke. Human resources. I mean, they've had all kinds of human resources issues. Like, I mean, their HR department should all be fired. I mean, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. Their member engagement sucks. People are really down on the organization. Their finance department, that they had millions of dollars being spent on some marketing campaign that nobody ever heard of. We talked about this on the show. I think they should have cut the whole thing. I'd like to see them shut down. Would be great. I mean, they're not doing much. So they've got to cut their budget.
Is NAR is who was paying past employees?
Yeah, they have it was kind of like, so you used to live in the city. Remember the drop program they had in Philadelphia where you could retire for a day and then like retake your job and get these big payouts with city council? Mm-hmm. Well, they would pay people, I mean, millions of dollars. I mean, they had a pied-à-terre for the Bob Goldberg. They had a dog walker they were paying for him. I mean, it just,
wow.
They need, I think this is long overdue. I would have liked to see this happen like months ago.
Yeah.
How can they better themselves? I mean, all these positions are cut, either eliminate or like, what are we paying for here?
The only way to better themselves is to find new leadership. I mean, Nakia Wright, she's going to be there, to make it look good, but they literally need to just fire everybody and start over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what you're saying is true. It's a lot of the same feedback. They don't do much. They don't offer anything. And we just pay dues to what,
Yeah, like, do we even need them?
Like, the lobbying in Washington is the one thing that has some value. I do like their conflict resolution at the local level. Besides that, I mean, I just don't know how. I mean, obviously the settlement get way out of control here. I mean, that's a total failure by NAR in the first place. So, I mean, it's if they're going to lobby and protect people, that's fine. I don't know that you need this whole like marketing campaign and all this money being paid towards it. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. I mean, this is not like some hot take here. This is what I would imagine most of the industry feels this way.
Mm-hmm. And maybe they can lower their rates while they're at it.
Right.
Yeah, they're not going to, good luck getting them to lower their dues.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next topic. I don't think this is that exciting. I'm glad they did it, right? Is that kind of the consensus here?
Yeah.
All right, Bill Pulte. So Bill Pulte, he is the FHFA director, the Federal Housing and Finance Administration director. So what he's done so far, he fired 14 board members across Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, appointed himself chairman of both boards, put dozens of employees on leave. He's pushing for a return to office mandate for a lot of these GSE employees. So if you don't know what a GSE is, it's a government sponsored enterprise. So it's typically like a financial services corporation created by Congress to enhance credit flow and market efficiency. A lot of this happened with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac when they took the conservatorship back in 2008. And then he shared a bunch of orders on X or Twitter. He did confirm that loan limits are going to be holding steady. And what he talked about doing was, he's just 6 months into the job. He's, there's a lot of these executives that are gone. What do you think is going to happen with all this? I mean, they're getting rid of the termination of special purpose credit programs, which were designed to help underserved borrowers access home financing. They're talking about getting rid of climate risk management rules, rental payment flexibility for multifamily leases, and Fannie Mae's policy to repair foreclosure properties before resale. That's also on the chopping block. So what do you think about some of these changes?
I can start. Climate risk management rules. All right. I don't know. Not a huge deal, but rental payment flexibility. You know how many people are in that category? What about Section 8 housing? Mm-hmm. What about housing where they say, hey, you're a first time buyer or you're low income and 3% all day long right now? What happens to those programs? So that'll be interesting because that's a big group of buyers. To enforce foreclosure on properties, I feel like I don't know if they eliminate that, then that's the only thing that kind of is always there. Like that's a given. We're going to foreclose if you default on your loan.
Mhm.
So now you start cutting these things. How are you getting paid? How are these banks? I don't know.
Yeah. What caught my eye was that he appointed himself chairman of both boards. What, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac?
Yeah, and I think it's I mean in a restructure, I mean who knows who's going to be brought back on. I think they're just trying to give some guidance there on both of these. I mean, and that's what his job is the FHFA chair. I mean, you know, you want him taking control, good, bad, or otherwise. It's kind of the point. So, you know, I mean, I think this is going to be very interesting because what we've seen happen with a lot of these government changes and a lot of the cuts is there was a lot of like wasteful spend, like some very wasteful spending. And you know, the return to office, I think that affects a lot of people in a lot of different ways. We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these things, like if you look at the you know, special purpose credit programs, I mean, I one of the challenges we have is affordability. And there's not a lot of affordable inventory anyway. So I don't know if it's going to affect the market right now. I think it could in a couple years when the market kind of bounces back or changes a little bit. I don't like the idea of repairing foreclosed properties before resale. I mean, why wouldn't you just leave that up to the whoever buys them? Like that seems like a waste. Most of those properties get, you know, rehabbed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think this is the beginning of moving this out of the conservatorship. I think that's definitely going to happen. And some people, like Greg Schwartz, the CEO and founder of Tomo, he thinks that's going to cause rates to go down, not up, which would be a good thing.
I was thinking that too. Only because where are you headed when you start losing, you know, if you start losing buyers that way. But then, you know, firing 14 board members across Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, it's like, whew. Yeah. It's just kind of like our government right now, you know, is it going to be able to hold what it's been doing? Maybe it's good, you know, trimming.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't know enough about all of the ins and outs to necessarily say, like, I think this is the right move, this is the wrong move. All I can hope is that whoever is making these decisions does know, like, that they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Because I think for some of these pieces, it's hard for me to have the like foresight into where that will trickle down and necessarily affect things later. Because you know, some of these decisions, it's going to be a while until we see the effects of it. And then there's also going to be, I think oftentimes like something happens, but then, you know, a lot of other little things happen to either like redirect it or to push it forward, or like so many pieces come together for this actually to play out. So like my hope is just that whoever is actually or like the ones in charge of this have thought through all the pieces.
Highly unlikely.
Well, and you know, I get, you know, Bill Pulte, obviously he's got a background in housing. So, I mean, I like the appointment from someone that's actually been in the industry versus like some Washington insider. I think that's a good thing. He talked earlier about the conservatorship has to be carefully planned if it's going to be pulled. And everyone agrees with that. Nobody knows what's going to happen here. I mean, this is we look at government as being broken, what right or wrong, that's the view right now. And I think a lot of people do feel that way. These entities weren't always under government control. That only happened in 2008 after all the bad lending that went on. So that's a lot different. And like I've talked to a lot of people in the financing, they have no idea. I mean, we're just gonna have to see what happens. The reason they went into conservatorship was to provide a federal backstop for mortgage-backed securities. Well, it's because all these banks were failing like nonstop. Everyone forgets like all this. Like Bank of America had to bail out a lot of people, right? I mean, it was bad news when debt went south. So that was the reason why this happened in the first place. And this is going to be something that you know, we're not going to see the effects of long term, or for until the long term, and it's just going to take some time. So I wouldn't stress about any of this right now. I think you just got to like let it play out. This is the direction we're going. There's nothing.
Are they going to offer more programs? Do you think? What do you think?
I mean, there's plenty of programs out there right now. So, I mean, you know, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan, I mean, what they're talking about cutting is like the credit enhanced. And that's for people that have bad credit in the first place. Like, are those really the folks who should be borrowing money? Like, I mean, they already have a bad credit score for a reason. So, you know, I don't know that the programs are going to change, because you look at the mortgage industry, it's like a pendulum, right? So after 2008, it went very conservative one way. Mm-hmm. Now it's kind of swinging back the other way, where you got 3% down, you have 5% down. Unfortunately, and you guys know this as well as anyone else, how do low down payment buyers get looked upon in the marketplace when they're making bids and it's a competitive situation?
Not so good.
Yeah, I would say it really depends on if there's competition on the house, because that's one of the first things that you're going to look at. Well, there's like a couple pieces that you're going to look at there, but that absolutely is coming up in the equation. If you're comparing off, like if you have the listing and you're comparing offers, what are they putting down? Both just to show the strength of the buyer, to cover, like if there is an appraisal issue, if you're only putting down 3%, you have very little room to even be able to, you can't really adjust your LTV.
Sure.
And it also leads one to believe there might not be the cash there to cover it if it does come in short.
Yep.
And if anything were to come up, like the down payment doesn't directly translate to inspections and things like that. But if you've elected to do different inspections and you've only got a small amount that you're putting down, and you're obviously there could be different reasons for that. So you're going to look at their buyer's financial form. You're going to see how much cash do they actually have, things like that. But it sets the stage for if anything goes wrong anywhere in the transaction where cash is needed, they don't have it.
Yep. You're right on the money. Number one question I get, can they beef that up?
Well,
no, I mean, that's what they have.
Yeah. And I think that the challenge with that is that, Sarah, you hit the nail on the head perfectly. Like, one thing goes wrong in this deal, it's over, right? And sometimes, one of the biggest stressors for sellers, it's not always price. It's making sure the deal doesn't fall through, making sure timing's going to happen. So there's more pieces to this than I think people realize. And those low down payment deals, they're tough to get to the table. Like, I mean, they're really challenging. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know. Because we don't have a demand problem. We have a affordable inventory problem. And if there's less of those folks competing, maybe this is good for the market long term. I don't really know. But there's some folks that, that they've been approved for. Just because you can approve doesn't mean you should buy a house. I mean, that's the reality. It may not be the smart financial decision.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with Bill Pulte. Here's the most interesting of all these. So Rocket Companies, they announced a $9.4 billion all-stock acquisition of Mr. Cooper. That comes 11 days after they acquired Redfin for $1.75 billion. So by my math, we're talking about over $10 billion, actually $11 billion in acquisitions. And the move is set to create a lending and servicing juggernaut that will oversee more than $2.1 trillion in loan volume and serve 10 million clients. That's 1 out of every 6 U.S. mortgages.
Huge numbers.
And to me, everyone's talking. Remember, we talked about like it's CoStar trying to compete with Zillow. Rocket is now competing with Zillow as the biggest name in the industry because they've got all the lending side. I mean, you're talking about mortgage servicing here.
Absolutely.
Mr. Cooper is one of the largest mortgage servicers in the country. And I mean, now they control 1 out of every 6. That's a bananas number. What do you guys think about this?
Wait, this might be a dumb question. Are they the ones that are issuing the mortgage or then are buying it right after?
So Mr. Cooper primarily services a lot of mortgages.
So that's where they take it over after it's settled.
Yeah, so the loan gets sold.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, in that case, I can see that happening. I feel like that's whoever wants to. What does the competition look like for, I guess, like buying them after the fact? Like, I know there's a lot of competition for the lender that's issuing the loan, because people are shopping around, people are checking out the different programs. There, a factor of having it be a local lender is certainly important in a lot of different ways. So I feel like a lot that gets factored in by the buyer or by the buyer's agent or by like the listing agent being like, get a different lender if you want, that would beef up your offer. I don't know much about the after that process goes through, when it gets sold after the fact, what the competition looks like.
I don't either.
And how that really affects the buyer consumer.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, 1 in 6. So that means, I mean, they can shop around, definitely, when they're in the situation, like when we have them still and they haven't purchased yet.
Yeah.
Sure, they can shop it. But if 1 in 6 are now being controlled by Mr. Cooper or, Rocket, wow. I don't know.
But we're saying that's after it's all done.
That's correct. After the settlement.
So I mean, I look at this here, and I think it's a good move for Rocket. I mean, it just brings more and more. That's their competency is mortgage, right? And I'm a bit. I don't know that Glenn Kelman was right on when he said we were going to be sold for parts if any other company bought it. I think they're going to turn Redfin into parts. I think they're going to keep the website, the agents. I mean, we can talk about Redfin agents all you want. Just go look at online reviews. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that they're while there's good agents at every company, a lot of them are literally door openers. They get paid per showing. They don't get paid to do a deal, which is very different than when we like the incentive for you is I got to get this to the table. Right. The incentive for them is, hey, let's go look at the properties, they'll open the door, and they bring very little value to the transaction in most instances. So, when you look at this, why this is such a big deal, it's about scale, efficiency, and leveraging tech. So, Varun Krishna, the Rocket CEO, said, servicing is a critical pillar of home ownership alongside home search and mortgage origination. With the right data and AI infrastructure, we will deliver the right products at the right time. That's how we build lifelong relationships, by proactively unlocking benefits and meeting needs before they arise. We look forward to welcoming Mr. Cooper's nearly $7 million client. So they're looking at this as the service side. That's kind of the intent with this. It's not so much origination like you guys talked about. Rocket's servicing portfolio is going to skyrocket. Mr. Cooper does have a robust servicing operation, and if you combine it with whatever Rocket's doing, it means enhanced automation, cost savings, personalization, and expected annual cost and revenue synergies include $400 million in pre-tax cost savings and $100 million in additional revenue from improved loan recapture and title and closing integration. So, I mean, there's a lot there to it. And Rocket already has an 83% recapture rate, triple the industry average. So when someone refinances, which we're seeing more of now, because if you look at the mortgages in the country now, 17% of them are above 6%. So it's a little different. So there's some serious business here for them. I don't know. I mean, obviously they're just trying to control as much as they can. 1 out of 6 is bananas. That's a big number.
Huge number.
Who are the other big servicers?
Let's find out, Sarah. I don't know the answer. So
Zillow better watch out, because do you think they got wind of this and that's why they tried to do?
Zillow's all they're doing is loan origination. So I mean, it's
Okay.
they're not servicing a lot of these things. So this is from National Mortgage News, Sarah. The top servicers out there are JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, PNC, Truist, US Bank, Fifth Third. I mean, there's a good amount of companies here. So and that's just their servicing volume in Q4. So and obviously this changes, it goes up and down based on what that looks like. But this is no surprise here. I mean, these are kind of the usual suspects you would think.
Doesn't Rocket have two parts to their business? Because Rocket Mortgage can give you your loan, your pre-approval.
Yeah, they can originate.
And then they can acquire, I guess, at the end. So maybe there are the two parts there that makes it so strong.
Yeah.
Because there is you do hear about JP Morgan and, Mr. Cooper and all these other ones that, Tom had mentioned. But I wonder if the two sectors for actual Rocket Mortgage, because I had a few buyers last year. I'm going with Rocket. I'm going with Rocket. So they never seemed to win over some of our local guys. Mm-hmm. I feel like they never did. They just couldn't hit the numbers that some of the local guys could. But there were a few, I sold last year. They got the Rocket. So, mm-hmm. So now they're doing both sides, I guess.
So Rocket has a low rate rating, 2 stars out of 5 for offering little rate transparency. And they also earned a 2-star score for having higher than median loan costs. So where they did well was in the affordability category, offering a wide range of products, which is fine. And they also scored well in their interest rate analysis, offering lower than median mortgage rates. But again, there wasn't a lot of transparency there. And its website offers plenty of educational material. I don't really care about that. So they didn't do well with rate transparency and their costs. And that's from a survey done by Yahoo Finance. So that's not really a surprise here. I mean, you got to look at this two ways. One, for the company, I think this is a big win for Rocket. You get all that servicing, that's going to be there. I think there's still a negative connotation with a lot of these big national companies among real estate agents and among consumers And the rate transparency score, I think that really explains it. A lot of people feel like they get a bait and switch sometimes with these companies, and they tell them one thing and then they get another.
Well, I feel like where they would do really well, and again, maybe this is just because I don't know as much about the servicing side of things, but if the consumer doesn't really have anything to do with that, then, and it's just about like how much total like capture of the industry you have and how much money you're going to put into getting a bulk of this stuff. If it's all just money on the back end to acquire it and you've got the money to do it, I would think then there isn't really another piece to it, right? Like it's not that consumer level power, like the power of the consumer to make their own decision for who they want to go with doesn't exist.
Well, this is you see this happen. This happened with accounting firms like the 2000s. There was the big six and they went to the big four. I mean, you're always going to see these mergers. Yeah. And I think this, a local bank can win at the local level. The same thing goes for a real estate agent, right? Everyone freaks out about Zillow. You can win at the local level. I think Zillow is a great complement to your business, but you can win at the local level just by working your network and your sphere and your brand and all that stuff. That to me is how you win. I mean, Rocket's going to do what they're going to do. You're never going to win against them as a practitioner, whether you're in mortgage financing or an agent. And it's, that's just the way it is. So I would look at winning on the local level and building your own business rather than worry about this stuff. I think it's a good move for them, but I don't think it's going to change much.
Time to buy their stock.
Well, time to buy their stock was before the acquisition, Amy, but we don't practice
Tom,
insider trading
your
here.
Inside scoop. Come on. That would have been the time for us to buy.
But I would not be talking about it. I would go to jail if that would happen. So, all right, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about how 10% of agents control over 42% of listings. And we got a clip here. We're going to do it all next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon. She's Amy Q. We all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about the stat. I love this stat for people like us. I don't like it for real estate agents that are out there, struggling, that 10% of agents control over 42% of listings right now. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. So we're going to explain that stuff, give you some questions to stop asking, play a clip here from Logan Mohtashami. So if you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team to talk about how we can help you with your listing and talk to one of these two ladies, you can do that with the link in the comments. So there was this Inman article that came out. And I just want to get your reaction to it first. The top 10% of agents control nearly half of all the listings, 42.64%. And that is based on a new survey that was put out with some people over at Relatics who I've worked with. Do you believe this number? It's a massive number.
Yes, I believe it.
Do you?
Yes.
Why?
Because I think that so, all right, the top 10% of agents. So then you've got the other like 90% that, this is my great math, that aren't in the top 10. But of those 90, there's a large chunk that don't do any business. So like,
that's very true.
So it's kind of like 10, but then competing against like this other group. So I don't know. I feel like in my head, it does kind of make sense. And you do see a lot of the same names over and over again on the listing side of stuff.
You do, but that sounds like a huge number. You do. Like our local market, we see a lot of the same names.
Yeah.
But we also see the same successful agents, whether they're buying or selling.
Right.
Like if I have a listing, I'm going to see those same names coming to me.
They do. And the longer you're in it, the more you really realize how small of a world it kind of is. And who stays year after year.
I mean, what's the numbers? Isn't it 10 to wait a second here.
75% of new agents are out of the business their first year, and 13% make it past 5 years.
13, right? And I think top 2% is
top 3%. You got to sell 25 homes.
25 homes, right? Okay, that's it. That was what I was looking for. So then that number makes sense. It's crazy. It's crazy to think of all the listings, and there's 10, that same 10%.
Right, but then if you still got the rest of the group getting the other 50%, I feel like that checks out, because of that 90%, there's a chunk of them that aren't doing any. like, yeah. And this is just saying of agents. So also it tends to be a more experienced agent that even gets to the listing side of things. Like typically the newer agents are coming in and either because there's too much competition to get the listing or because of the way like their training programs work, they might not be able to take a listing, even if the opportunity came up. So like you're competing. So like you're already like shaving off from like the bottom of this 90%, leaving another half of the listings to maybe 40%. Because I bet you're already going to drop a bunch of them off for various reasons. If that, in my head, that made sense. I don't know if that made any sense when I explained it out loud.
It makes a ton of sense. And there was one thing you said that was wrong. Most agents don't have a training program when they get started.
Sure.
Their training program is, hey, there's a desk over there. Go call your sphere.
Yeah.
Let me know how it goes. I'll be sitting in my office over here doing absolutely nothing. That's what most managers do. So they don't have a training program. And when you said the thing you said there, Sarah, that I thought was really smart is that it's very difficult getting the listing appointment. That's the hardest thing to do in real estate is to get the appointment and to win it. And no one shows you how to do this stuff. Like it's like a big secret. I know we train on it all the time in our company and our team, but that's because we want to help people develop careers. Most people, like most teams, they're like, go work the buyer leads. I'm going to go get the listings and see you later. And it's like a cloak and dagger sort of like Illuminati thing that goes on. So I'm clear there's also a major reason for this is that a lot of agents, they do dumb stuff. They say dumb things all the time. I mean, think about some of the things. We were at an open house on Sunday and someone said something to me and I told you what it was. And it was like, I can't believe that came out of that person's mouth. Agents say stupid stuff all the time. They don't think about it. And when it comes to listings, like you say one thing wrong, it's over. Like you're done for. And I don't think people really get the high level stakes when it comes to that. And the other challenge is a lot of people think they're a good agent because they have a good personality. They don't know how to talk to their clients with data. Right. So I'm going to play this clip here. I want to get your reaction to this. Let's make sure we do this right. Did this before. Let's see how it goes. This is from Logan Modashami.
Talk to your clients with data. What I've seen over the years is that there's a lot of agents who just don't tell the data. They don't want to invest time with learning. The agents that care about that and learn about that and can explain to other guys, you have that person for life. Because if you let your clients go on YouTube, if you let them go on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, that's trash. A lot of that stuff is garbage. So they are being inundated by garbage 24/7. You have to be the source that talks about what's really going on, and that makes you a more prolific, confident real estate agent or mortgage risk.
So what do you think about that clip from Logan there? Because I think that also sums up how people they try to win with like rapport and personality, and I'm like this great fun person, but they don't go over the data with sellers, and these people this is their biggest financial investment in a lot of cases.
I think the data answers a lot of questions, whether you're like an analytical person or not, whether you're somebody that like is going to be really focused on the numbers answer a lot of the questions quickly that will come up regardless of anybody else's personality type. Like you can bring it back to the data.
Bingo. I mean, we say it over and over and over again. Did you bring value? Do you sound professional? What did you offer them? How did you stand out?
Yeah.
Why do they want to work with you once you met them once?
Right.
Because I'm bringing something to the table. Whatever that may be, you pick it. Maybe they see something in the house and they're like, oh, that hot water heater looks awfully old. If you know anything about hot water heaters, you can tell them the age, the date, whatever it may be. I'm just picking one thing.
Sure.
But you have to bring value. And that right there, if you can answer some questions, if you can bring some sort of facts and know what they're interested in before you meet with them and hit it hard.
Yeah. And I think like particularly in the listing appointment when they very well could be interviewing other agents and when they're like, you're sitting down and you have this like order of things that you're going through with them. And there are like real questions that are very much like, this is huge for them. Like, what are they going to get for the sale of their house? How is it going to go? What's their competition? What's the days on market? Being able to reassure them with those facts, and sometimes reassuring them isn't telling them exactly what they want to hear, but setting their expectations for how it's going to go so that they know once you're in the process, like, well, we talked about this. We didn't think this home was going to go in 4 days, like we went through the days on market, or like we priced it aspirationally with the conversation in advance of, if we don't get the right feedback, if we don't get the showings, if we don't get the things that need to happen in order to get this under contract, that then the conversation was going to happen in 2 weeks for what happens next. And so like setting expectations.
Yeah.
Well, when people know what to expect, it really goes a long way. Now, the last thing, and this is one question like every agent should just stop asking, and people do this all the time. You'll hear me on the role play call. Hey, do you have a home to sell? Talking to a buyer, like that's their strategy to get a listing. All that sounds like is, I'm here to earn a commission. You're not helping people. So if you know how to talk to people with data, if you know what questions not to ask, stop saying dumb stuff to people. And understand, like, there is training around listings, just going and finding it. I mean, we've been on probably hundreds of listing appointments together. We've been on a number of them as well. You guys know how this is going to go at this point. It's not like some big secret. That's how you get more listings, but you got to work at it. It's not going to happen overnight. Everyone wants them, but they don't want to do the work. So we're getting the wrap-up sign here at WWDB. So you want to follow Amy. Amy, what's your Instagram handle for everybody? I got it here. It's at Amy_.
Wachari.
All right, so we're going to spell that.
Yes.
Quaciari. So it's Amy_Quaciari. You can follow Sarah on Instagram. It's at Ty_Ty Time. And you can follow me at Tom Toole 3RD. We'll be back every week, Tuesday, 3 o'clock, Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Peace. Oh. Okay, Tom, you got to tell me what happened at the open house.
I got to end this before I tell you.